Good morning, everybody. I know. Today, Wednesday, the 27th day of Adar Sheni, corresponding to April the 3rd, 2019. The Lighthouse live video feed Torah project לעילוי נשמת דבורה פייגה בת שמואל and רפואה שלמה of Ora Devora bat Rivka. The iTorahLive.com live recording לרפואה שלמה דוד מנחם בן דבורה לאה and שידוך for Nehama Dina bat Hanabatia and Sarah bat Nehama, and the breakfast today for the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue and the class of today, graciously sponsored by Mrs. Camelia Ilarslan and family, לעילוי נשמת her beloved father, Rafael Ben Jemile, alav shalom, on today being the 30th day of his passing. Yeh ratzon that through the merit of the berachot and words of Torah being said in his memory, his neshama should have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amen. Before we start the class of today, I'd like to share with the Kahal Kadosh a glimpse of the life of Don Rafael Ben Jemile, alav shalom. I did not know him. I know some of the family members which are here today with us, but I'd like to share a couple of highlights of his life. And the reason why we do this, not only to speak about the Niftar, but also to share with the Kahal how every Jew, every person has a great potential to become great throughout life. And we all have potential. We need just to believe in ourselves, not to drown in a cup of water. I'm willing to go the extra mile, surrounding ourselves with good people, a wonderful community, and obviously a meaningful and spiritual way of life. So I'd like to start to say that Mr. Rafael Ben Jemile alav shalom left the world 2 days before he turned 99 years old. Can you imagine? I cannot imagine. I'm far from that. But can you imagine the gift of longevity? And you'll be shocked at what happened throughout his life, especially in the final lap of his departure, prior to his departure. Stay tuned. I usually don't have so much information when people donate a Sa'udah, but now that I have it and I read it before, I said this is definitely important and worth it to share with the Kahal. He was a man dedicated to his family, to Jewish life, and to studying Torah. He was the first one to come to the synagogue and the last one to leave. The problem with us is that we are the last to come in and the first to leave. I hope it doesn't apply to anyone. No. Baruch Hashem. And even though that in the later stage of his life, it was very difficult for him to move, he will wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be able to be the first person who greeted the Almighty at the synagogue. The family left Aleppo 1954 and they moved on to a place in Turkey where they live with several Jewish families, which unfortunately the majority of those families did not live a Torah-oriented life, but he will go from door to door to gather to put a minyan together. There was no kosher butcher in the city. They used to get the meat once a month in order to have something of meat for Shabbat, for the holiday. So most of the living was to subside, or to survive rather, on fish and dairy food. Unbelievable. what will do on Shabbat, he will gather his family, and especially the boys, to teach them how to pray and share the weekly Torah portion. In other words, you keep the fire alive. That a person to say, and I'm going to add a few things in between the paragraphs, because this paper is a class by itself. To say, I did not have community support, to say that I did not have a Kitab and a Talmud Torah, that's only an excuse why you did not try something at home. And you'll see that these efforts, going back 50, 60 years ago, they are paying great amount of dividends today. And you'll hear soon. The father, Rafael alav shalom, was in the textile business with apparently his brother. And the customers going back 60, 70 years ago were people from the village that they came to buy wholesale, and they will pay every week whatever amount. And one Shabbat afternoon, one of the villager people knocks on the door of his home on Shabbat afternoon, and he says, I happen to be in town. I'm here to pay you the remaining balance of my bill. Shabbat afternoon. What did he do? He refused to take the money. He says, today is my holiday of Shabbat. And therefore on Shabbat, we don't conduct businesses. And on Shabbat, we don't touch money. But the man says, but you are right. But I'm not coming back here for another 6 months. I'm in town today. Let me pay you. Maybe I can leave the money with a neighbor. And Rafael ben Jamile says, I cannot deal with money today. Today, money and I don't talk to each other. This was the conviction of Rafael ben Jamile. He was devoted to Hashem in his belief, in his connection, in his convictions. For the last 30 years, the family lived in Panama. The children achieved a tremendous amount of financial success. This is part of Hashem's blessing. You refuse money on Shabbat, money comes to you in a different way. Left behind a wife, 7 children, 20 grandchildren, and 21 Ben Porat Yosef, great-grandchildren, who all follows in the footsteps of the great-grandfather. You know, the beautiful community of Panama, just to give you Jewish geography, which I love, Jewish geography I love, they have 3 major Sephardic synagogues. One is called Bellavista, the center of town is called Paitia, and on the west coast, I think, or on the Pacific coast, it's called Punta Pacifica. These are the three synagogues. Colón is the free zone that it takes you an hour to get there by plane, or maybe 40 minutes. But Colón is a whole different ballgame. I don't think the Jewish people do not live in Colón. Jewish people work in Colón. They pray in Colón. But where the Jewish community lives is Bellavista, Paitia, and Punta Pacifica. So he lived next door to Punta Paitia, which is a beautiful synagogue there. And also, he had a wish of being buried in Jerusalem, which is exactly what the family did. He fulfilled his last wishes. The halakha says, Mizvah lekayem divrei hamet. There is a concept of a person honoring the wishes of a person who no longer is among the living. Which wishes? Only positive wishes. If God forbid, it should never happen, but a father or a mother says, don't say Kaddish for me, God forbid, we don't listen. If they tell you, don't spend money on burial, God forbid, do something else, Has v'shalom, we don't listen. But if they're telling you to do something that is halachically acceptable and approved, mizvah lekayem divrei hamet. And definitely, it's a great zechut to be able to talk about this wonderful gentleman. But before I start the second part of today's class, as I said before, this by itself is a class to understand that there are great people in the world. Everybody is good. But as I said in the beginning, we need to develop the potential that we have. We all have much more potential than we display. You need to know that. If we make the extra effort, imagine yourself, a person goes to a doctor, and I'm using a medical example because I believe that is the easiest one to relate to. Let's say you go to a doctor, and the doctor tells you, he checks your blood, he checks this, checks that, and he says, you know what? You need to avoid fried food. You need to avoid French fries. You need to avoid bread, let's say. You need to avoid alcohol because it affects your diabetes, your arteries, your cholesterol. And it says if you don't press on the brakes, God forbid, it could be something more dangerous, right? And Rashi actually brings this up, different types of doctors. One doctor tells you, you know what? Maybe you should avoid French fries. Another doctor tells you, I don't want to see you in the emergency room if you keep eating French fries. Which one will be more effective? The second one. The first one is giving you an option, MSRP number. Yani suggestion. You understand? So what rabbis tell us, that every person has a great potential. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to understand that we always need to look up and not to look down. You know when you look down? When it comes to financial matters. That's what we learned a few weeks ago. When it comes to financial matters, look at the person that has much less than what we have, in order to be able to count our blessings and to value our blessing and appreciate the blessings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us day after day. I'd like to finish this brief concept about Rafael Ben Jemile, and this came from the Bikur Holim from Panama. Bikur Holim, Baruch Hashem, worldwide, is one of the holiest institutions that exist. We all know the wonderful Bikur Holim SBH, and we also have a very wonderful and active Bikur Holim chapter here at the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue, Baruch Hashem. And we also have a Bikur Holim in the city of Panama. And they do similar to what they do here. They go visit the sick. They go to nursing homes. They go to hospitals. They pray. They read Tehillim for them. And this is a statement that came from one of the volunteers of the Bikur Holim from Panama. Now, I want you to think for a moment that we're dealing with someone who left the world 98 years old and 363 days. He left the world 2 days prior to his 99th birthday, which we already know that the average lifespan, according to the book of Tehillim, is 70 years. Every day after that, consider it a bonus, a gift. That's what's written in the holy books. Don't be afraid. You're not going anywhere. Are you going anywhere?
I don't know. I just turned 74.
Okay, Ben Porat Yosef. So the 74, so I tell you a segula. I tell you a free spiritual benefit. Every year you celebrate a birthday, and I know that many people do this. God gifted you a year of life. Now you need to give God a gift. What is a gift? A spiritual gift. Okay, God, in honor of my 70, what number you said?
4.
I'm going to say 75. So I give you one extra. Okay? I'm doing this extra mitzvah. Or I'm doing this better. This is what's written in the holy books. You know what many people do in the day of the birthday? They read the next chapter of Tehillim. So if you are 74, they read number 75. When you celebrate 75, you read 76. That's what's written in many books to do. I personally do it. Right?
You have 150, so you can.
Right. You have 150 chapters, so you're not going to run out of Tehillim chapters. Okay? Okay, you have 150 chapters to cover. So you're only halfway. You're not only half, you're barely halfway. All right? So, imagine yourself someone of this age. Tired, frail, perhaps, weak, and probably he may have been in a hospital or at home, bedridden. And it says that every time we went to visit Rafael Ben Jamile, was a person that had an exceptional strength. And even though sometimes he appeared to be half asleep with an oxygen mask, when we'll read Tehillim, he will read Tehillim with us by heart. We'll say chapter 20 of Tehillim, Lam naseh mizmor leDavid ancha shemeyom Sarah. He will murmur it with us. Kiddush, or when the Shema was recited for him, he will correct us if we would have made a mistake in the reading of the Shema. At the age of 98 years old, weak and in bed, nothing came between him and desire to serve Hashem. You're an example to follow. You left a fingerprint in our soul, and we will follow your example of devoting ourselves to prayer and to serve Hashem in the way that you did it throughout your life. Beautiful. Beautiful, and I'm thankful to the family member here present that provided these beautiful insights about the life of her beloved father. And with this, Be'ezat Hashem, we'll put the papers on the side and we'll share because this was also words of Torah. You know, it's important to know, right, to speak about our relatives, right? And although Hesped usually means a eulogy, this was not a eulogy. This was celebration of his afterlife. You know, the Gemara talks about Yaakov Avinu. And Yaakov Avinu, the Gemara says, Yaakov Avinu never died. That's what the Gemara writes in Ta'anit. And right away, one of the rabbis asked, how is it possible to say that Yaakov Avinu never died? The Pasuk tells us that the Egyptian nation mourned the passing of Yaakov. The children of Yaakov took him to Me'arat HaMachpelah, to Hebron. You know, there was commotion in the world upon the passing of Yaakov. And how can you tell me that Yaakov did not die? So the Gemara says that death has two departments, physical and spiritual. The physical death is something that cannot be avoided. Okay? And I'm not trying to frighten anyone. I hope nobody has any plan for an early departure. God forbid. Everybody should be blessed with health, with happiness, with longevity, and all the good things that you desire. And we hope and pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Mashiach will come, Ve'ezat Hashem, in our lifetime. Because that's something that we live for. To see the day that the redemption will come to Am Israel. So when the person leaves the world, who stays with a person's neshama? So I tell you something that the Pirush in the Pirkei Avot tells us, that there are three friends that a person has. The best friend is their money. That's what the Mishnah explains. The money of the person. Adam karov esel mamono. Money is your best friend. I know you're a holy man and you don't need money, but most of us need. Okay? So how cautious and how careful and how thoughtful the person comes when he deals with money. You try to stretch out the money. You try to buy wise, correct? You try to get the best deal. And the longer the money stays by you, the more peace of mind you have. Obviously, money is not everything in life, God forbid. But this is the reality of life. How many times people do wrong things in the name of, I need to make money? How many people are not honest in business? They hurt people. They cheat people. They lie to people under what auspices? Auspices known money. Haz v'shalom. That's why the first question is what in the Gemara? Were you honest in business? If you are able to answer question number 1, then we proceed to question number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If number 1 we got an F, you need to go, as the rabbi said yesterday, to the dry cleaners of the neshama, aka Gehinnam. Okay? I already said the beracha in the previous class, so I'm not going to say the beracha now. There is a concept that the pasuk says, "Bi'item neki'im me'Hashem u'me'Israel." A person must be careful in not giving the wrong impression to humans or to the Almighty. So therefore, I'm not going to say a beracha because I already said it before this recording started. I don't want anybody to say, I saw the rabbi drinking tea without saying a beracha. God forbid. It could happen. It could happen, Haz v'shalom. Like the guy who ate in a non-kosher restaurant. And the rabbi was watching him from the window. And he said, what's wrong? I have rabbinical supervision. I gave you the short version, okay? I have rabbinical supervision. Anyways, let's continue. So going back, what happens when a person, God forbid, leaves the world? What happened with the money? The money stays behind. Stays in the bank, stays in the IRA, stays in the stock market, mutual funds, safe deposit box, whatever system you have in life. They don't escort the person to the final destination. Next best friend, your family. Your family, okay? Your family. Hopefully everybody has a beautiful relationship with the family, which is very important, more important than money, because sometimes the presence of money causes a break on the family. Haz v'shalom, God forbid. You should never be involved in this. But as a rabbi, I don't do only weddings. And sometimes I have to diffuse ticking time bombs when it comes to the topic of finances. So, the person, God forbid, leaves the world. The family escorts the remains. How far they go? Up to the grave. Nobody goes down. Did you ever see somebody go down besides the guy from the Hevra Kadisha? Obviously not. Obviously nobody goes down. So there is a limit where we are able to go. But then you have your third best friend. Who is this friend? All the good deeds that you did in your life. Every penny that you gave in charity. Every amen. Every Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Every act of kindness. Every word of Tehillim. Every word of Torah. Every word of Tefillah. Every mitzvah that you did in life, they are the one that paved the way, the Zohar Kadosh writes, for our neshama to be greeted in Gan Eden. This is beautiful. But we also need to know that there are two sides to the coins. We have our good deeds and we have the deeds that they need teshuvah. But at the end of the day, sometimes the most neglected level of relationship, which is our spiritual level of relationship, is the one that we must invest more and more and more in our life, because this, at the end of the day, is what determines are we alive or we are not alive. That's why the Gemara writes, Tzadikim b'mitatam nikraim haim. even the dead, when they are dead, are called to be alive. Alive spiritually. So that's what the Gemara writes in Ta'anit, that when the person leaves behind descendants who follows in the footsteps of our parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents, this is the ultimate level of happiness that a soul experiences. The Zohar HaKadosh writes in Perashat Pinhas. I may have said this maybe a few weeks ago, but I'll say it again. That every time that there is a simcha, there is a joyous occasion in a family. Joyous occasion means the typical life cycle celebration. Milah, Pidyon, Bar Mitzvah, Bat Mitzvah, wedding. It says in Zohar HaKadosh that up to 3 generations from our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents come down to celebrate with us. Meaning to say, you have the milah of your grandson, for example, and you are sitting as a sandak, or you have the milah, maybe you're sad already. Your father is there, your grandfather is there, your great-grandfather also goes from both sides of the family, husband and wife, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and your parents if they are no longer among the living. Why are they giving an opportunity to come down into the world? If they left already, if they are your great-grandparents, how many years ago did they leave the world? 50 years at least? Let's say 20 years is a generation. 60 years ago, they already resting. For sure they are in Gan Eden after 60 years. Why they let them come down? Short answer. Because when a neshama leaves the world, the spiritual neshama, the spiritual soul of the person, has 2 concerns. Not 3, 2 concerns. One concern is, what's going to be with my neshama when I reach Shamayim? As we read yesterday, Rabbi Alon Anava, who gave a glimpse of his NDE experience, near-death experience, what he saw, what he felt, and how that reset his button of his neshama. You saw him yesterday, how he was dressed. Okay? But did you hear what he said in the introduction of his class? That before he did Teshuvah, he was a millionaire in American dollars, living la vida loca in New York, from Israel to New York, 0 connection to spiritual life, to Torah, tattooing throughout his body piercing throughout his body, and the only reason I'm saying this publicly is because he said it publicly. You understand? Does this sound to you like someone that can do teshuvah? No, but you say, needs to do teshuvah. And Baruch Hashem, he experienced whatever he experienced, and he got the message, and he woke up. Okay? That is a very special case. It's not very common to hear these kind of situations, but I'll tell you that the neshama of a relative who leaves the world has one concern. What's going to happen with my future generations? Are they going to follow Torah? Are they going to marry Jewish? Are they going to do milah to the children? Or God forbid, they may assimilate, and I say goodbye to my dynasty. I know that what I'm saying is heavy, but that's what the Gemara says in Ta'anit. Ma zar'o b'chaim. Your children are alive, your grandchildren are alive, your great-grandchildren are alive, and they follow a traditional Jewish Torah-oriented way of life. We give you a VIP pass. Go and celebrate.
Lawrence Mystery's friend used to say, Mamad.
Translation for the listening audience.
The translation is, whoever doesn't die.
Hazaku Baruch. So actually that comes from Gemara in Ta'anit, and that is also found in Midrash Rabbah, Perashat Noah. And it says, Elle Toledot Noah. These are the generations of Noah. And the next sentence is, Noah was a righteous man. If these are the generations of Noah, the Pasuk should have said, Shem, Ham, and Yafet. So we understand from this that your descendants, you have two levels of descendants. The physical descendants and the spiritual descendants. The physical descendants are your children, your grandchildren, your descendants till Mashiach comes. Our spiritual descendants are the mitzvot and ma'asim tovim that a person does. And this is how the legacy of parents, grandparents, as I mentioned this last week's parasha, the importance of the elders, the importance of the grandparents. She'al abicha veyagedcha zekenecha veyombru lach. We don't discard the past. You know, I was cleaning the house yesterday. My wife told me, you clean or you clean? She wanted to do it. I said, please don't enter my domain. Books and paperwork. I said, sweetheart, thank you, but this is my baby. Thank God, she was very proud of me that we were able to get rid of a lot of stuff that is very, very old. And I saw yesterday, you know, the diskettes that used to put in the computer. I said to her, maybe I can donate it to a museum. You know, it's obsolete. You know, you see things that, you know, are old, no longer functional. Even if you're going to get a wire for it, it's impossible to get. But in our Torah, the old, it's like the wine. What's the beauty of the wine? The older the wine is, the better the wine is. The more experience the person gets in life, the more you see the past and you work for the future. In other words, the umbilical cord from generation to generation, we don't cut it. What does it mean? When a baby is born, the Gemara writes in Nida that the umbilical cord connects the mother to the baby. Whatever the mother eats, the mother drinks, the mother does, has a direct influence on the child, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. What happens when a baby is born? The doctor cuts the umbilical cord. Nowadays, they save the umbilical cord for the cells that it has from health purposes, and they cut it here, but they don't cut it from the baby. They let this bottom part to dry out, and once it's ready to fall off, it will fall off, and that's the end of that. But, interesting concept, that in Judaism, we never cut the umbilical cord. We transfer the umbilical cord. We transfer the umbilical cord from father to son, son to son, son to son. That's the idea of Pesach. We're going to be celebrating Rosh Chodesh, Shabbat, right? Guess what? 2 weeks from this Shabbat, Pesach. Masa umaror, misharotam, halahmania, manishtanna. But what is the whole idea of the celebration of Pesach? Besides recognizing Hashem's miracles and divine providence and support and maintenance and guidance and protection, what is the main menu of the Seder of Pesach besides Masa, Maror, and wine? Hazaku Baruch. That's why it's called Haggadah. Why it's called Haggadah of Pesach? Why don't you call it Sefer Shel Pesach, the book of Pesach? Why don't you call it Mahzor of Pesach night? But we call it Haggadah. Why? Because this comes from the prayer that we say every day of our life. from Sunday through Friday. When we put on tefillin, one of the perashiot of tefillin is Behigata lebincha bayom ahu lemor. Our children. And now we understand that if a father teaches a child, hopefully the child has the necessary tools, and that's why Jewish education is important, and community life is important, and being part of a community is important, and giving a good example is important. You cannot say, I'm at home, kasher. And what about the outside of the home? No. So guess what? You have a virus in your neshama. You have a confusion. You have mixed up pulse.
Why is the
Night.
son Rasha? Because he separated
Yes.
from the...
He separate. I want to live my own life. Correct. Anyways. So we understand that all elements are required. At home, a good example at home, a good example outside of the home, Jewish education, and a good community support. And obviously a good rabbi. And I'm not looking for new customers. But we already discussed in the other class the importance that a person is connected to a rabbi. Many times people ask me a question. All kinds of questions. Good morning. Good morning. Somebody say good morning, way back. Okay? Anyways, now, you know one of the first things I asked this person? Who is your rabbi? Did you ask your rabbi? There are questions that are easy to answer. Rabbi, what time is mincha today? Okay. Rabbi, what time is Shabbat? Rabbi, is there an eruv? These are easy questions. But let's say you come to me with a particular situation or a particular question, and the answer could have so many varieties and many times depending upon the particular circumstances of this individual. Somebody asked me a question the other day, and I answered to him, in your case, it's permissible. Why? Because this person lives a challenging way of life. And as Rabbi, and I know the case, and he's somebody that I have contact with the person, and therefore I know, where to draw the line. But some questions, only if the rabbi knows you, can truly give you the proper answer. I may give you an answer that you're not ready for it. You understand? So when I said that you need to be part of a community, I'm part of the community in Mexico, for example, right? I used an example. But I said, yeah, and which synagogue are you a member of? No, I'm not a member. And where do you go? I don't really go. So you identify yourself from a community, so to speak, because you happen to be born and live in that city. But if you want to draw the blessing and the oxygen that a community brings upon the person, you need to be willing to breathe the air of the community. What does it mean? Go to the knees, go to the programs, go to the lectures. People travel in groups. For example, people come to Tambury, right? People come to Miami in groups. People go to Deal in groups. People go to Brooklyn in groups. And guess what? This is not only in America. In South America, it's not different. People travel in groups. 20, 30 families get an apartment in a resort, and they organize a minyan for the summer schedule. That's beautiful. Why? Because we are bringing God with us into vacation. And even though there is such a thing, vacation, in the physical world, but there is no vacation in our relationship with God. It's like you decide today not to breathe. You know what? I breathed yesterday 32,000 times. You know what? Hajj, enough. I need a break today. Can you survive without breathing? Can you survive without eating? without drinking? Obviously not. So godliness and spiritual life is the oxygen of our body and our neshama. And that's why it's important. And I'm going to speak now to the grandparents and great-grandparents watching and listening this class. And parents, pray also for the spiritual well-being of all of our descendants. This is between you and God. And Be'ezat Hashem. Hashem should help us that everybody should have a nahat, have spiritual pride and joy for the descendants. And Be'ezat Hashem, very, very soon, we'll have the merit of the ultimate redemption, Mashiach's arrival. B'mira v'yamenu. Amen. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi